lovely people, and welcome back to this week's new video. I can't believe that Asian Readathon has come upon us so quickly, so I'm really excited. This is going to be my second year participating. If you're new here, hello, my name is Noah. I'm a bookish and lifestyle vlogger, born and raised and still based in New York City. If that sounds like of any interest to you, I would absolutely love it if you would stick around and subscribe at the end if you so please. I considered like doing my eyebrows and putting in my contacts, which I totally could because I have class in a little bit, but it's my sister's birthday tomorrow, so I'm gonna be doing all of that tomorrow, and I just didn't feel like it, you know. I've been wearing my glasses a lot more often in quarantine, so all you're gonna get is like jewelry and my second day hair. I have 11 books to talk to you about today on my TBR. There are 5 prompts, but I have to have a backup. It's just the Virgo in me. I have to be ultra prepared. There is one prompt that has 3 books attached to it, and my backups do overlap in terms of ethnicity for just a little bit of them, but obviously they're just the backup. But it would be amazing if I read all of them. Like, not all of them will count because they do overlap in terms of ethnicity, which is one of the rules. But I'm really excited. I've already put a bunch of them on hold from the library, and they should be coming really quickly because I was the only one to put them on hold. Last year I had some difficulty acquiring some. I know that I listened to a lot of audiobooks. For this one I will be reading everything physically, and maybe if I feel like it I might find something on the Libby app or something, but I do prefer to read physically. 3 books I already own. I think one of them is a backup though. Let's just get straight into the prompts. I will leave Cindy's announcement video, the creator of this readathon, down below. I will also leave the links to the story graph, which has all the resources of different books that you can find according to country, ethnicity, and possibly genre. Although in some cases I did find that the list is not 100% accurate. I did see for like books that were non-US centric, there were US centric books. Just keep that in mind. First prompt is to read any book written by an Asian author. And for that book, My Year of Meats by Ruth Ozeki. She is Japanese American, and this book is following the tale of 2 different women. One woman named Jane Takagi Little has landed a job working as a producer on a show called My American Wife, and it's sponsored by an American meat exporting business. And because of this, she ends up discovering the truth of this hormone called DES. And in Japan there is Akiko Ueno, who is a housewife, and she's kind of struggling in her marriage because her husband just wants to have a baby. It says, when Jane's and Akiko's lives intersect, the deepest concerns of our time are illuminated. How the past informs the present and how we live and love in an ever-shrinking world. I ended up finding this in one of the little free libraries near my house. I believe I read a book by Ruth Ozeki, although I can't remember which one off the top of my head. It might be, no, I've heard of her, definitely. I think the book that I'm thinking of is by a different author. I was really excited to find this in my little free library, especially with it being a author that I recognized, and I just happened to hold on to it, and it seemed perfect to finally pick it up during Asian Readathon. The backup that I have for this prompt is The Henna Wars by Adiba Jaigirdar. Holy crap, I'm going to be butchering a lot of these names. When I read the books, I definitely will look into pronunciations and stuff because I definitely want to be getting them right. If you are looking for pronunciations, I typically look for like interviews they've done because sometimes the audiobooks don't have the right pronunciations as well. This author is from Bangladesh, and she is living in Dublin, I think, or at least somewhere in Ireland. And this book has been on my TBR, I think, when it was released, I want to say last year. This is a YA romance that is LGBTQIA+, and it has been described as when Dimple meets Rishi meets Simon versus Homosapien agenda, both books which I have read. They were okay. I think I read When Dimple Met Rishi last year for Asian Readathon. Her parents don't approve when Nishat comes out to them as lesbians because Muslims can't be lesbians or whatever excuse that they give her, but she doesn't want to not be true to who she is, but at the same time Nishat doesn't want to lose her relationship with her family. A competition at her school requires all students to create their own business, and Nishat decides to do henna, as does her childhood best friend and current crush Flavia. What's her name? Yeah, Flavia. And the synopsis did say that Flavia is a appropriating Nishat's culture, so I guess they're aware of that. I think that's going to come up somewhere in the book, or hopefully does address it. Because it's a contemporary romance, we're going to see that relationship between Flavia and Nishat. Moving on to the next prompt, which is to read any book featuring an Asian protagonist. The first book that I have for this is also another one that I found in my little free library at a separate time. It's in absolutely perfect condition, but this is Yes, No, Maybe So by Aisha, Saeed, and Becky Albertalli. Aisha Saeed, I've read a book by her I think also during Asian Readathon, but definitely last year, and she is Pakistani American. The synopsis itself was also separated into 3 different sections of Yes, No, and Maybe So. Yes is for Jamie, and he is volunteering for his local Senate candidate in Georgia, but he has a fear of speaking to strangers until he meets Maya. And Maya's was no. She's having the worst Ramadan ever. Her best friend is apparently too busy to hang out with her. Her summer vacation plans have been canceled, and her parents are separating. She also doesn't understand why her mom tells her to join Jamie to go canvassing. And for Maybe So, because the two are working together and are in close proximity all the time, as a YA contemporary romance, the two are getting closer until they realize that they need to navigate their cross-cultural romance and whether or not that would be possible for them. It does look very, very chunky. Of course, it's going to be told in dual perspective, but I believe that this should be something really sweet and easy to get into. And Jamie is Jewish and Maya is Muslim, which is the cross-cultural aspect of it, and I've seen reviews that it is very relevant to the current times. The backup that I have is my last physical copy that I have on my shelves, and this is The Poppy War by RF Kuang, who is Chinese American. This book I've heard only good things about, actually. It's very high fantasy, and I believe that the first book is inspired by the Second Sino-Japanese War, and it's set in ancient China. And this is RF Kuang's debut novel, and it really has like amazing things reviewed about it. It's a great floppy paperback as well, and it's been on my shelf for quite some time, so it's time I finally got to it, hopefully this year if not for this readathon. But this is following Rin, who is a war orphan, and she passes the test called Keju, which is an empire-wide test to find the most talented youth to learn at the academies. It's giving me sort of like the Grisha test vibes. Yes, I realized that after watching Shadow and Bone that I have been pronouncing Grisha wrong this whole time. Okay, it's Grisha apparently. So as a dark-skinned peasant girl from the south, she is experiencing a lot of bullying at her military school, much like Alina does. Rin ends up discovering that the gods everyone thought was dead are actually alive, and through them she possesses a power. And through that power, she may be the only one who can save her people from their enemy and former occupiers, the Federation of Mugen. If a war does end up sparking, it will lead to the Third Poppy War. Yet, as she discovers more about the god that has chosen her, the vengeful phoenix, she fears that winning the war may cost her humanity, and it may already be too late. I'm listing all of these similarities to Shadow and Bone, but I'm not saying that in like a bad way at all. It's just that I like being able to pick out these similarities, especially if I liked them. The third prompt is to read any book written by an Asian author in your favorite genre. For these books, my backup is actually a different genre. My favorite genre, I would say by far, is going to be mystery, crime, thriller. I do bunch that into one, and I say crime because unlike a lot of people on BookTube, actually I do enjoy books in perspective of the police and like actual like investigating portions of it. And then the second genre that I chose was romance because the Storyglyph did have a section for that, and I didn't know what else I would choose because contemporary felt a little bit too wide. It's not like an exact genre, but that felt really easy. Those are, I would say, probably my top 2 genres. But the first one that I picked was The Silence of Bones by Jane Her, who is Korean, and this is a thriller. This is set in the 1800s in Korea, and I think her pronunciation is Seoul. There's no U like Seoul, Korea, but so I'm not really sure. But she is 16 years old. Oh my god, I can't speak. She is 16 years old and is indentured to the police bureau, and she's been assigned to work for a young inspector who is investigating the politically charged murder of a noblewoman. The inspector and her are getting really close, but then he ends up being the prime suspect in the murder, and Seoul is the only one who can figure out what exactly happened on the night of the murder. Monica Kim chose this as a book club pick. I know that her and Reagan were reading it, but I'm not exactly sure for what, but they both had decent reviews for that, so I'm excited. And the romance, which is my backup, is A Pho Love Story by Leigh, who is Vietnamese American. Bao and Lin work at their family restaurants, and because the two pho restaurants are neighboring, they are rivals and have always been. And because of that, Bao and Lin have never really crossed paths. Due to a chance encounter, they realize that like sparks are flying, and they're like, why have we like never spoken before? Until they remember that their families are rivals and if they can find love within that. So it's giving me a little bit of Romeo and Juliet vibes. This book has also been described as When Dimple Met Rishi meets Ugly Delicious. I haven't read Ugly Delicious, but I think that if I do enjoy a fall love story, if I end up getting to it, I might pick that one up. The fourth prompt is read any non-fiction book written by an Asian author, and this is the prompt that I have 3 books for. My first one is The Beekeeper, Rescuing the Stolen Women of Iraq by Dunya Mikhail and Max Weiss as the translator. The author Dunya Mikhail is from Iraq. The author has interviewed several women who have escaped the clutches of ISIS in Iraq. These are all women who have lost their families, have been sexually assaulted, psychologically tortured, and in her interviews of these women, she discovers that there is a beekeeper who ends up being like everyone's hero. The beekeeper and a wide network of transporters actually help to save these women one by one back to safety. So that's my number 1 pick. I found it at the library, so I'm really happy about that. The second book that I have is I Am Malala by Malala Yousafzai, who is Pakistani, and that is the overlap with Yes, No, Maybe So. She is actually my age, so that's like sort of just blows my mind a little bit, because I remember when she first started appearing in the news, she just wanted her education and she wanted to go to work, but the Taliban weren't allowing for women, I believe, and girls to attend school anymore. And because she was starting to speak her voice, she was shot at point blank at 15 years old on a bus ride home and ended up surviving. And a year later, she became a global symbol of peaceful protest and the youngest ever Nobel Peace Prize laureate, and this is her story. The next book that I have is a physical book. It's on my sister's shelves, Know My Name by Chanel Miller. This is another overlap because she is Chinese American, as is RF Kuang. In this memoir, Chanel Miller is reclaiming her identity after she was sexually assaulted by Brock Turner at Stanford, who ended up only getting sentenced 6 months in jail because he was like a star athlete, and surprise surprise is white. If I read non-fiction, which I'm trying to do more of this year, I do really enjoy memoirs, not specific to Asian authors, but if there are, that would also be really awesome for other people to see. But if you had any memoir recommendations, I really would enjoy them. I did enjoy The Glass Castle and Educated last year, although I did prefer The Glass Castle more. Yeah, if you have any recommendations, let me know. Now we're coming to the last prompt, and this is read any book written by an Asian author that's not US centric. I'm living in America, that I should be broadening my horizons by reading about different cultures set in their native countries or like other subsets in different countries. The first book that I have is actually the first graphic novel that I have, and the only one. It's a graphic memoir, and it's called The Year of the Rabbit by Tian Vesna. I'm not sure because there's an A in there, and he is Cambodian. His family immigrated later to France. This is a graphic memoir about Tian's family struggles to survive during the Khmer Rouge reign in Cambodia, I think from 1975. I think the only other Cambodian book or book set in Cambodia was about this reign as well. I read it in 8th grade as well as my freshman year of high school, and it was told in vignettes. I can see the cover and I don't remember what it's called. If I can find it, I'll have it, watch it not even be based in Cambodia. The Khmer Rouge, they seized the capital and ended up starting to evacuate everyone from the major cities of Cambodia, completely disregarding humanity and like everyone in the country. Because of that, a lot of people ended up being displaced and there was a lot of poverty, and this reign actually led to the death of 1 million Cambodians. This story is being told in his perspective, obviously, but also his family members. And then the backup that I have for this one is called The Map of Salt and Stars by Zain Jaigirdar, who is Syrian American. There's a present day 2011 and then 800 years later, but the present day does take place a little bit in New York City, but they end up moving. After the death of her father, Noor and her family decided to move back to Syria to be closer to their family. But one day, Noor's family home in Syria ends up being bombed and she almost dies. The family needs to decide whether they should stay there and risk being subject to more violence, or if they should seek refuge in a different country in the Middle East or North Africa. And then 800 years prior, there is a young girl, Ruwiya, and she disguises herself as a boy and becomes an apprentice to a map maker, I guess, Al-Idrisi, who has been commissioned by the king to create a map of the world. The book follows both Noor and Ruwiya as they travel the same exact path, just 800 years apart. I found this on one of the lists and realized that it was actually on my TBR on Goodreads, so that kind of ended up being really perfect because I do have a never-ending list of books on my TBR because of Goodreads, and I need to start narrowing those down. I'm really hyped because the books that I ordered should be coming very, very shortly, and I can start getting reading on the physical books that I have on my shelf right now. This is just going to be such a good time. Because there are 5 books, I think I might try to do 2 separate vlogs, because I have done vlogs, like my Smash or Pass series includes 5 books per vlog, but that's like so many books crammed into one. I don't want to do a video that's incredibly long. Because of that, it only allows for me to talk about the books in the vlogs, like not show other parts of my life. So I think that by splitting up the vlog, I can show maybe other things in my life to keep things a little bit more interesting for myself. So yeah, at least 2 vlogs for Asian Readathon, and if I do read any of my backup books, I can incorporate them in like regular weekly vlogs that I do. I can't wait to see what other people are going to be reading on their TBR, because there are so many Asian cultures and so many books that we could be reading by Asian authors. Oh my gosh, I can't wait. I'm really excited. I haven't participated in a readathon in actually quite some time because I felt really busy this semester. For May, I will be in like finals week, so that should be annoying, but I'll have the latter half of the month to have fun and do a lot of reading. So if you're participating, I would love to know what you're going to be reading. I hope that you can get a lot of reading done in May, regardless of whether or not you will be participating in this readathon, although I highly encourage it, and I will see you all next time. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.